Hey everyone, in this video we are taking a look at the Stellar X3 condenser microphone. This is by Tzaudios products. They asked me to do a YouTube video demonstrating how to set it up and how to use it. They shipped it to me for that purpose. I paid for shipping and taxes, but they paid for the product. No other obligations. I'll also be comparing it though to the previous microphone they sent me for review some years ago, the Stellar X2. They're both very similar microphones. They both have a K67 style capsule. If you're familiar with the Neumann U87 condenser microphone, a very famous studio microphone used by companies like NPR, this is in a similar style, but for a fraction of the price. Instead of costing many thousands of dollars, this is under $1,000. So it has a 37 millimeter capsule, -33 sensitivity, and a very flat frequency response. I can confirm the X2 was very flat, and so I'm going to be testing the X3 as well, but I expect that to also be really rather flat. Unlike the X2, there are some improvements. As we can see, there's a high pass filter you can toggle on and off. There's also a 10 dB pad, so if you need to quiet the microphone down. One of the interesting things that stick out to me is it says there's quite a focus on quality with the X3. Each microphone is within 1 dB of each other, which allows you to buy any two X3 microphones to form a matched pair. I mention that because in the past, when I wanted to buy two microphones for like stereo, I had to buy them as a matched pair. Apparently with this one, the quality is so high you can just buy any two and you can use them as a matched pair. I can't test that, but it's worth noting. They also sent this card over, which shows that they did a burn-in test, frequency sweep, noise floor test, inspection. So they claim these microphones are hand-tuned, so you're paying for that quality, that extra step of inspection. So what we'll do next is I'm going to show you how to set these microphones up, and then we'll jump into a comparison between these two. So let's start the setup by connecting the microphone to the included shock mount. This is an improved shock mount compared to the X2. We can just hold the nut here and screw the microphone in. You generally want to speak into the front of the microphone, so position it wherever you want. I'll position it here. There's a connector for the mic stand here, and there's an adapter depending on if you need to adjust it for your stand. Screw this on. With this, the stand was not included, by the way. This is just a cheap stand I'm using for demonstration, but we put it on and then we can screw it in. Okay, here we go. To set this up, in terms of actual use, you will need a preamp. Now I have a preamp here. This is an M Audio M-Track, a very old one I have, but it's a good quality one. When buying an XLR cable, I personally find you want to get at least something that has double shielding. You don't need it too long. Usually as short as your application needs is as long as you want. Longer could introduce more noise. It's also harder to manage a lot of cabling. The female end into the microphone, which is male, snaps in. And then the other end of the XLR cable can go into our preamp, left and right. A lot of preamps have two channels. So if using the preamp in stereo on your computer, capturing in stereo, you'll only hear audio in the left channel. Other things to consider when buying a preamp: not all preamps have direct feedback. So if you want to hear yourself in real time, you might want to buy one that has a headphone port with a direct feedback option. This one lets you control whether you hear the computer or the microphone, and you can balance it out. You also, in this specific case, you want a preamp that has 48 volts phantom power, because our microphone here is a condenser microphone. They require power, and the power is provided over the XLR cable at 48 volts, and it's also used for transmitting the signal. You can turn that on and off. A dynamic microphone does not need this, but a condenser microphone does. This has a USB output, but you might want to buy a preamp that has a line out option, a 3.5 or a option like this, in case you want to use this microphone directly into, let's say, a camera. Some cameras have a line in or mic in port. If your preamp has a line out port, you might be able to feed the audio directly into your camera, allowing you to sync the microphone to the video perfectly without having to synchronize it in your software after the fact. So yeah. Now let's say you want to connect it to your phone. Well, in that case, this is not going to be suitable. It's too big probably, unless you're setting up with a backpack. What you can do is you can use a device like this. These come with line 3.5 millimeter output, line out, I guess, or mic out. They also come in USB or Lightning. I am a proponent of 3.5. It's the most flexible. I'll demonstrate that in just a second. But to use this takes a battery, a 9-volt battery. And it has a XLR port. Again, we can just connect it. We can turn it on. We want to turn it to the 48 volts option. And then we can use this to change the gain. This is a fairly loud microphone because it's a condenser. You don't have to crank it very high. And now we have the 3.5. Now, some phones support 3.5 millimeter input. Most don't anymore. I think Apple killed that. But you can buy a 3.5 TRRS adapter, 2 USB or 2 Lightning adapter. It's about $10 for an Apple 3.5 to Lightning adapter, for example. And the benefit of going that road is it will work with Safari and Video Ninja and many other applications on your iPhone. If you buy a preamp that has Lightning output only, it actually may not be certified to work with Safari and other applications. I'll link a video below in the description that explains that problem. But if you buy a 3.5 millimeter adapter, you have a universal plug type. Another reason I'd suggest 3.5 is a device like this Zoom. It's a recorder, a portable recorder. It takes line in. So now you can record, put this in your pocket and record or whatever you want to a high quality recording device without needing a phone or anything like that. So if you wanted to do something that way, you can record a podcast this way. And this is a stereo line in. So if you were actually using something like this with 2 tracks and you had line out, you could actually feed the line out from this into this and have guest 1 and guest 2 on channel left and right. Okay, so I have the microphone now on a mic stand, floor mounted mic stand, and I have it about 7 inches away from the front of my mouth. I'm off axis about 30 degrees, but you probably want to be like 45 degrees off axis from a microphone like this. If you speak too close or directly into it, you'll get plosives and wind noise. So you want to speak past it. There's no pop filter, no windscreen on this, right? So you have to be careful. And you can get one and slap it on the front. So if you are having problems with wind noise and plosives, this might help a bit. Now, I do get people, Video Ninja users, asking about how to improve sound quality. So I want to touch on that a bit here. I am not an expert, so consider these just my personal recommendations. One is treat your room. You'll notice I have acoustic foam on the wall here. This is really cheap acoustic foam. It's not going to really do a whole lot. But I do have acoustic panels on the ceiling. I have a couch, a bookshelf. I have these things in the room that can either absorb or break up echoes. So echoes in the room will make the audio sound bad. It'll make you sound like you're in a washroom. Especially if you have hard walls, hard ceilings, hard floors. You're really going to want to find some way to put things in the room that can break up the echoes, like a bookshelf, or absorb the echoes, like a couch or a carpet, or go with acoustic panels. So that's one recommendation. Another is to wear headphones. You don't need this if you're just recording, but if you're in like a group call, like with Video Ninja, you are going to want headphones. The audio from your speakers feeding into your microphone will have to be canceled out, and that's going to degrade the audio quality if you don't wear headphones. And although Video Ninja has echo cancellation on by default, the more it has to use that, the worse the audio gets. So wear headphones and the audio will sound a lot better. Turn down the gain, let's turn down the volume on your headphones. If they're too loud, they can sometimes bleed audio, and you'll pick that up as well. There is an option to disable echo cancellation in Video Ninja. So if you are wearing headphones, turn it off completely to get even more quality. Now there's another setting you can turn off in Video Ninja, denoising. Work in a quiet spot. Try to move away fans. If you can work in a quiet spot, you don't need the noise filter. Turn it off, sound will be better. Another option to turn off is auto gain. Now if you're doing spoken word, if you're doing like a podcast, you might not need to turn that off. For voice, the auto gain tends to work pretty well. It's not very good for music though. If you're doing screen sharing of a game, or if you're playing music or recording music, turn off the auto gain. It's gonna make it harder to control the audio. Music's gonna get quiet at the loudest parts and gets loud at the quiet parts. So it's gonna deflate the music. I'm not a big fan of it, so turn off auto gain if you're doing music. Now, of course, if you turn off auto gain, you have to be very cognizant of your gain on your preamp. So this microphone is connected to a USB Pre2 preamp by Sound Devices, a USB Pre2, yeah. It's an expensive one, but it has a feature called a hardware limiter. If I get too loud, the hardware limiter will turn down the volume in the nick of time so I don't clip and cause distortion. It's kind of like an auto gain emergency brakes. Kicks in only when it gets too loud. I love that feature. Obviously, if you're an experienced audio engineer, you'd never need to use that. But for someone like me, having that lets me get my gain a little bit louder than I might otherwise get, and know I have a safety net. Some other users buy a compressor to try to also control the gain. But for most users, you don't need to worry about that. Turn down the gain, probably lower than you think, maybe 30% of the way up. This is a very loud microphone. You don't need full gain. And then let Video Ninja, for example, with the auto gain, handle the audio leveling for you automatically. Another recommendation is to avoid what I just did. Practice good mic technique. Practice your breathing. Practice your plosives, your P's and T's. Avoid saying and Focus on what you're saying. And try not to get too loud or too quiet. Try not to mumble. I'm very bad at all this, I admit. So the more I practice, the better I'll get, and the better you can get too. So practice your mic technique. People who are good at speaking not always have that come naturally. I think that's it in terms of recommendations for audio. What we'll do next is we will compare and analyze the frequency response. We can then see on a graph what the actual response curves are of these microphones, because of course they claimed this was hand-tuned, so we'll see what that means. Okay, let's jump into that. Testing is done. We have the X2 microphone set up for some contrast with the X3, so that's what you're listening to. On the screen here we have the results. We have the X2, X3, and I threw in the SM7B, a popular dynamic mic by Shure, and that's this guy. I also used the EMM6 calibration mic to get the results more accurate. I tested in a soundproof chamber with pink noise as the source. Results you see on screen have been smoothed. Now on the bottom, the blue is the SM7B, so again, this guy, and we see that the gain output is really rather low, about 25 to 30 decibels less than the other microphones. This can be explained because the SM7B is a passive microphone in a sense. It doesn't have an active preamplification stage that's powered like the condenser mics do. So it has a much weaker output, and that means the external preamp you have is going to have to do more work. If you have a cheap preamp, it might not get the signal loud enough, or it might start introducing a lot of noise floor. As well, some preamps can impose their own character on like microphones like the SM7B. So if you don't have a high quality preamp, you might not be getting the most out of your SM7B. While with a condenser mic, you don't really need a high-end preamp. It's not going to impose a whole lot of character on the mic, and you don't really need a whole lot of gain to get a good clean signal. All the the preamplification stage is kind of handled by the microphone itself. As we see on screen here, it's quite a bit louder. Okay, looking at the X2 and the X3, the X2 is in orange and the X3 is in green. They're pretty much identical. So the two mics we're mainly looking at here are virtually identical, all the way from 20 hertz to 4 kilohertz, 4,000 hertz. At around 4,000 hertz, the X3 starts to tame the high end. We start to roll off the treble, roll off the sparkle on the high end, while the X2 maintains more of a flat response there. It maintains and retains more of the high end clarity. So I'd say the X2 is probably a flatter microphone, and the X3 seems to be more akin to the SM7B. It mimics the SM7B's kind of roll off on the high end. So if you like the way the SM7B sounds, you might like the X3 more, but I think it's all kind of personal preference, which mic you prefer in terms of the frequency response. The X3 does have a flatter bass response than the SM7B. That might come off as sounding a little bit muffled, and in some places it might pick up more of the fan noise in your room. But there is a low cut or a high pass filter on the X3, and we can see that in red here, where it turns off some of the bass. It drops the bass by about 5-10 decibels. So if you want more clarity, if you want to get rid of some of the background noise, you can turn on that low cut filter, and yeah, it's going to help maybe with clarity a bit. It's up to you. The purple here is the X3 again, but with the 10 decibel pad applied. It looks to be more like closer to 15 decibels a pad. Hard to say exactly, but this lowers the gain. If you're using this with maybe like a drum kick, some sort of loud source, you might find the pad useful. The microphone is so loud you might want to quiet it Yeah, I'm not sure what else there is to review here. You can hear the X2 for yourself. It's very similar to the X3. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments. I have included links in the description as well that might be helpful. Otherwise, take care and thanks for watching.